sometimes life doesn't just hand us challenges, it strips everything away until we are forced to rebuild from the ground up. Listeners, today's guest knows that story intimately. When Yvonne Heimann lost both her husband and the business they built together, she faced not only grief but the collapse of her identity. And yet, from that loss emerged a vision of leadership that's deeply human, one that blends systems, mindset, and soul. As the founder of AskYvi and Boss Your Business Academy, Yvonne helps entrepreneurs move from burnout to balance, from the founder chaos to CEO clarity. Listeners, her approach fuses automation with empathy, efficiency with emotional intelligence. So, in this episode of the BizBlend podcast with your host Sana, well, that is me as always, we are exploring the intersection of structure and spirit. You know how to build systems that don't cage your creativity, but free it. So, listeners, today we are going to talk about freedom through systems, the leadership shift from founder to CEO, and also the human side of automation. So, with that, let's get down to the conversation. And Yvonne, welcome to the show. And it's really, really an honor to have you here with us.
Thanks so much for having me. And oh my God, have you just nicely summed up everything I do? Because it's like, let's be honest, the podcast name BizBlend is just perfect for what I do. And it's like, I'm gonna have to go back to this episode and pull this perfect intro of everything I do. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those kind words, Yvonne. And let's first try to understand, how exactly this freedom through systems thing, what exactly it is about. Now, Yvonne, most entrepreneurs, they start their business chasing freedom. We see this very popularly amongst, sometimes college graduates and corporate employees. I want to be a startup founder, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to build something of my own because I'll have that freedom to decide where I can take holidays, where I can work. I won't be working under anyone, but it kind of ends up feeling trapped by it. um this is not a general overview, but I have seen many examples out there. So, what does freedom through systems actually look like in real life, not just in theory?
Yeah, and like the interesting thing really is that yes, every one of us has started their business probably with that idea of freedom in mind, of making my own choices. And then we suddenly learn that yes, we have the freedom of choice and it is determined by our clients. So the struggle that I often see and pretty much every single time is we started out with a passion. We started out with that goal of freedom and being able to make those decisions. And along the way, we ended up building a 24/7 job. So now we might make less the pay, same pay, and we are working more than we worked in a job because we are not going home at 5 p.m. and are like, we are done, right? We build a business that we are passionate about. We are build a business that we are excited about. And then comes that step of, okay, now it's time to actually, to some level, if not all, remove you from the business. And
Mm.
that's where systems come in, that's where processes comes in, that's where automations comes in, that's where standard operating procedures comes in. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs and especially creatives are like, oh my God, you want me to do what? How is my business going to run without me? You want me to create standard operating procedures and systems just box me in. And interestingly enough, the opposite is the case. Um, SOP, standard operating procedures, have become really simple thanks to the right tools and AI integration. You literally just talk through your process, and 5 seconds later, you have your standard operating procedure. Systems also means it is easily repeatable. Humans are a, we have habits. We all
Mhm.
have our habits, how we do things, how we like to sleep, how we like what we like to drink, how we like to start our day. We are habit people. And a system is nothing else than tapping into this habit and automating it. Let's let technology take over the admin work and the stuff you don't want to do. Not everything has to be outsourced. However, once you get ready to outsource, you still also going to need those systems and standard operating procedures and resources. So your team member actually knows how you like to have things done, who you are, and just be able to step into their position, contracted or full time, and easily do the job you hired them to do.
Got it. Got it. I think that's very, very powerful, especially the part, where you mentioned that, often, especially entrepreneurs who are very creative, um,
Mhm.
it's kind of very common to think that structure will kill it. Um, and why do you think is like that? Because of course there could be situations like that. There could be cases like that. Why do you think? I mean, where do you think is the gap? Is it because of the present systems or structures that we have, or is it because an a creative entrepreneur is expecting too much?
Um, I think it comes from this of the idea of creative freedom that you don't want to be boxed in. You don't want to be forced to do something a certain way because inspiration just strikes. Unfortunately, inspiration doesn't just strike. Anybody with a writer's block knows what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
And it's that perception. It's that perception of creative freedom means there is no system, there is no box, it just happens. The actual case, though, when you look at entrepreneurs, when you look at startups, when you look at the companies that are growing, is there is a system behind it. And what happens there is the system takes care of
Mhm.
everything around you and frees your mind to be creative. What do I mean by that is running nobody wants to run their books every month and download the statements from the bank and hands it over to the account. Nobody likes other than accountants, nobody likes doing this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
What if I can literally just systemize that, run an automation and have it done for you? Now suddenly your brain isn't stuck anymore on the, oh my God, I still haven't downloaded the statements. I didn't download the statements last month. The,
Yeah.
the stress that comes with, oh my God, I have to do this is gone because we took care of it.
Exactly.
And not only that, even if it's not automated, even if it is um just a thing of knowing exactly, okay, Friday morning, 2 hours is my bookkeeping time. That means till the time comes on Friday morning and my calendar tells me to do bookkeeping, I can move it aside. I don't have to keep it in my head and keep reminding myself, oh, yeah, I still haven't done the books. I still haven't done the books. No, guess what? I don't have to worry about it because I allocated time for that Friday morning. So no matter which way you look at systems and processes as well as automation, as much as we initially look at it, oh my God, now I have to do it a certain way, it
Mhm.
also frees your mind to not worry about it, to not constantly think about it, so you don't forget because it's simply taken care of.
Exactly. Exactly. And if I can, I think support this with another example. This kind of it is. I mean, the industry is different, but I think especially when we are talking about creative entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
um, many writers, script writers, um, like in the initial phases, they will always struggle, with IP and all the legalities. Just because
Yeah.
of one thing that they're not aware of it. one day you're writing the script, you're handing it over, and the other day you just see someone else coming up with that
Mhm.
exact story, exact movie, and you feel like, it has you have been robbed of that.
Yeah.
So I can absolutely relate to that feeling, and that's why it is very, very essential that um, to become aware that systems, they don't limit us, they hold us steady so our purpose can expand.
Mhm. Yeah, I completely agree. And especially also when you look at it out of a point of view, yes, it gives you peace of mind. It gives you a specific structure so you can play. It also gives you something that is sellable. So,
Mhm.
what I mean by that is if you say, you know what, awesome, I built this business, I'm really happy about it, I've got it to where I want to get it, and now I want to do something else. I'm like, I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I could start something new every 24 hours, right?
Right.
With systems and processes in place and those all being recorded, it doesn't just mean that it is easier for me to hand something off or let somebody else take over a job that I just don't like doing. It
Mhm.
also means I have the resources and the structure in my business that I can sell the business.
Right.
So, with a creative agency, with a marketing agency, you easily can be like, sweet, we have a whole team here. I've been running this as a CEO, but you know what? All of the resources are there. Everything is recorded. Somebody else can step in. Now, this is if you potentially want to sell an agency. It
Mhm.
also helps you, as you mentioned, I had lost my husband to cancer, and I pretty much had to put my own business on ice for 2 years. I made the choice to do so. I started over, and I did not have things in place yet. If
Mhm.
I would have had things in place, my business could have kept running while I took care of my husband. Now, I hope nobody has to learn this the hard way as I did. COVID came around. Suddenly the world shut down. People
Mhm.
got sick. There
Mhm.
we go. Now, suddenly again, we have a backup plan. It's not just only that you are getting to a point where your business potentially is not reliant on you and you can just work 2 or 3 days if you decide to do so. Go digital nomading, go on vacation, all the things you always wanted to do and you put aside because now you built your business and it became a 24/7 job. It also means you are not reliant on a one single person in your business and you are not screwed if for whatever reason they can't do their job. It's a safety.
Yeah, it is. It is. And also, I think uh, your um your personal, like the story, I think it also serves as such a, it serves a great example here. And uh, exactly that is why it's very important, um to have mentors or experts, or people who have been there, done that, because that will give you that clarity, that direction to move forward.
And again, as I said, it's like it's one of the it's one of the worst case scenarios and one of the biggest call out. Again, it's also can be again just as simple as just getting a cold. I have seen so many people that would just need to be able to just take a week off from their business to just get over the cold, and they can't even do that. And also in another way, what I've seen is coming back around to systems and processes, just simply freeing your mind is I worked with a client that was in a creative rut. Fortunately, they had a team that was able to pick up, but as we say so nicely, the creative juices just weren't flowing. And I'm like, Yeah, because your brain has no room to be creative and play. Now you are not just the creative in the business, you are also managing the people and doing all the stuff in the business. So we went on a journey together to implement clear systems to make the business more efficient, to automate what we can automate, especially with creatives. There is so much asset management. If that's especially digital asset management, if that's photography, if that's videography, if that's graphics build, whatever it is, there is so much digital asset management. All of that can be automated with folder structures and naming conventions. And we went through and we overhauled their agency. It took a little bit because there was a lot of work to do. However, at the end of it, we didn't just make his business more efficient. He also became creative again. He got to play around on certain campaigns because he was not stuck in the everyday business.
Mm, exactly.
And
And
that's fun to watch.
yeah, it is. It is. And also, even like, as a podcaster, like I can also connect with that because um it sometimes, becomes like a logistical nightmare if you don't have systems or automations or even AI. Like,
Mm.
it will be wrong if I cannot give credit to AI, but if these are not in the right place, it is so difficult, so overwhelming to manage everything. Um,
Oh, I agree. I'm like, as a podcast host myself,
Mhm.
I put at this point I produce my podcast with 3 clicks and two part-time team members. One team member takes care of the socials, the other one takes care of the editing.
Yeah.
Everything else, the my guest management is working through automations in my project management tool. The update to guests, it's most about 75% of that process is fully automated, and the
Mhm.
rest is the video editing and the promoting on social media, which my part-time team takes care of. Me personally, I about click 3 buttons and I need to upload the footage that I record. That's about it.
Exactly. I think the human part, the flavor, the identity in there, that uniqueness, that cannot be replaced by any of the automation on AI. That is what exactly we as humans we contribute.
Yeah.
We add to it. The soul.
It's cool. It's yes, the soul as well as you cannot take away from experience. I've built my own custom AI based on my knowledge. And it has seen some things that I didn't see. However, it still doesn't have the same experience like I do. It would take so much to train it with all of the knowledge and all of the failures and all of the rebuilding and all of the fixing. It is going to take quite a while for AI to be able to do that, if ever.
Definitely. That's such an honest take. Such an honest take. Great, great. And before we wrap up, Yvonne, I think let's bring in a bit of nuance in here. And this is specifically around, um, leaders, entrepreneurs, founders. Um, it's kind of inevitable to face rejections, loss, sudden change in everything. Um, so many leaders, they talk about bouncing back, but if I can personally think about it, I think loss changes us permanently. So, do you think, Yvonne, that leadership after deep loss should even look the same as before?
No, it can't. Simply because you are not the person you were before. So, and to to be really clear here for everybody listening, loss can be multiple different things. It doesn't have to be um like me losing my husband, a another loss, a loss of an animal, or a loss of a business or a loss of a dear employee that you had can feel just as devastating. So please don't think it needs to be a huge loss that everybody publicly sees as a huge loss. It can feel the same way, even if everybody else thinks it's something small. And I don't think there is any way at all ever to go back to leadership and the leader you were beforehand, because you are not the person anymore that you were beforehand. And one thing that comes to mind for me is I heard at some point somewhere where somebody had said the thing that nobody tells you about personal growth is that you are going to be grieving the person you left behind. When we change, there is also a loss of our old personality. So there is no way you ever going to be the same leader again after loss, after personal growth, after change, simply because you are not the same person anymore. Things will always change, things will always be different, and you can never unlearn what you learned. So your perception is going to change, how you show up is going to change, and how you lead is going to be different.
Mm. I think that's a very, very crucial takeaway, Yvonne, for me as was very, very important takeaway. Very awesome, awesome. And I think it's also a beautiful truth, because um rebuilding isn't about returning to who we were, but it is rising as who we have become. And I think the proof is in the pudding. Like, I have been doing so many conversations here with people who have gone through so many trials and tribulations. There was someone else before, now they are somebody else. So yes, it's the proof is, in front of us. It's just that we need to acknowledge it for ourselves as well. Of course, with compassion, with no judgment. Um, and I think it's a kind of freedom only found on the other side of letting go.
And sometimes I wonder if rebuilding is actually the right word, because when I think of rebuilding is great. I just came from Kansas, so I have that analogy in my head. If a tornado blows through, you are going to be rebuilding a house. You are going to get completely new material and build a new house because what was there is gone. Now, with that, do we actually ever really rebuild, or do we actually kind of remodel because the foundation is still there? Who we were yesterday, we still are, but a different version of it, an upgrade. We added maybe a nice patio to it, to stay with the house analogy, but we never really rebuild, but we continuously upgrade, even though when life hits us over the head, sometimes it might feel like we are starting again from zero. However, do we ever really? I don't think so.
Yeah, and I think that actually makes sense. Actually makes sense. Actually. Wow. Okay. And then, of course, before we wrap up, I think it's really such a thought-provoking discussion, and I really, really, there's so many thoughts right now racing through my mind, and I'm very sure our listeners will also have the similar kind of feeling in there that will really, really help them to maybe go back into the uh, you know drop boardroom, or maybe start writing, or maybe writing down their thoughts, or just kind of doing some self introspection in there. And also, if one of listeners, they would like to connect with you, get a hold of your book, your resources, and also your podcast, what would be the best way?
The easiest way to really find all of the resources and assets is just go to AskYvi.com. That's AskYvi.com. The podcast is linked there. The YouTube channel is linked there. My book, all the freebies, all of the social links. And yes, it's me on those social profiles. So again, the easiest way to find anything you could be looking for is just go to askyvi.com. That's AskYvi.com.
Super, super. And listeners, I have all the details in the show notes for all of you. So just go to them along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform. And also do check out her podcast. She's a leader. And if I could summarize this, I think what I love most about this conversation, listeners, is how Yvonne reminds us that systems aren't cages, they are scaffolds. They don't strip us of humanity, but they protect it. And real leadership is not having all the answers, but it is about creating that space for your people, for your purpose, and of course, most important for yourself as well. So if today's conversation spoke to you, take a moment to reflect. Maybe with a question like this: what part of your business still runs on fear instead of freedom? What could shift if you trusted yourself enough to let it go? Until then, this is BizBlend, where we believe the best businesses are built from the inside out. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep blending business with humanity. This is your host, Sana, signing off. Catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.